Welcome to Dead Man Talking. Tonight's show is a very special show, as promised. It's special because we welcome my dear friend Chaos Theory Productions. Now, some of you may be familiar with Chaos's work. He did feature on Dark Waters channel and absolutely smashed that show to pieces. So I'm thinking he's going to do the same here. In fact, I know it, and I think you guys are going to enjoy this story. Very creepy, something a little bit different. Thank you so much, Chaos, for working with me. Guys, if you have the time, please do check out Chaos Theory Productions on YouTube. Fantastic channel, guys, up and coming, and really great narrator, great stories. Without further ado, let's get into tonight's story from Chaos Theory Productions, entitled, What Stalks Among the Snowfall? Let's get straight into that.
Ever since I was 5 years old, I would travel up to northern Wisconsin to deer hunt with my dad. For most of my adolescence and teenage years, we would always hunt on public land, somewhere around the Chequamegon National Forest, for white-tailed deer each November. As a kid, I usually was bored out of my mind and dozed off or played my Game Boy. My dad would always sternly whisper to me to pay attention to my surroundings, since deer, despite their size, are very quiet animals. I'd usually protest with statements like how I wasn't even hunting, or that I was too cold or tired to pay attention to the quiet woods. Looking back, I didn't appreciate the sport as much as a child. As an adult, in my early 20s, my appreciation of hunting had become fully realized. I learned to understand the subtlety of sounds in the wilderness and notice movements and noises that most non-hunters or wilderness explorers would not be aware of. It's not really a superhuman skill. Just take some time and experience within the wilderness is all. This was especially useful during open season, where the northern parts of the Midwest were usually white as a sheet. Hunting is a very intimate experience that requires respect of your firearm and the animals you are hunting. The first rule was young and maturing deer off the list. And the second rule was never hunt only for sport or endangered game. Having respect for Mother Nature is a priority. Last year, my aunt and uncle purchased a big plot of land near a small town in Wisconsin, which was just shy of 80 miles south of Lake Superior. I first visited their new land during the summer of last year to help with setting up some tree stands and just enjoying local lakes and fine summer weather. The entrance to the new property was a small gravel road surrounded by trees that led about a quarter of a mile into an opening. In the middle of the opening was a massive cabin, with one smaller guest cabin adjacent. To the west was a hill that met a tree line, and to the east was a pond, and more trees behind the pond. Just north of the cabin was an opening to a large field where I could see my uncle and his son Jerry riding around on an ATV. I parked my car and entered the cabin to be greeted by my aunt. My room would be at the second level of the cabin in one of the children's-sized bedrooms, and I was told the house used to belong to a farmer and his family prior. The bed was fine and offered a great view of the extravagant parlor downstairs. My only complaint were the occasional dead flies in the corners of the room and all of these unsettling old-era dolls my aunt kept as antiques around the house. I ventured outside to group with my relatives and see if they would need any help with the chores. In the field to the north of the house, my uncle was planting alfalfa and other grains for the coming fall and transporting tools and lumber for his treehouse construction. I greeted myself and complimented him on their beautiful new property. As my uncle went about his business, my cousin and I jumped on 2 ATVs and began our ride into the nearby woods just north of the field. You see, to get to the center of the woods, we had to first cross over this makeshift bridge above this tiny creek that ran through the property until we reached the tree line. Once at the edge, there was a sharp incline about 30 degrees that we had to drive through before arriving at the top. Once we were at the top, We were now in the thick of the woods, and the trail branched off to our left and to our right. Jerry told me we had to check out the newest constructed tree stand, which was at the end of the left trail. I gazed around at the canopy of green trees and shimmering sunlight poking through. It was beautiful. Green grass painted the soft soil below us, signifying summer was in full motion. The woods were rolling with small hills all around us and made for a limited viewing. We finally came over one of the hills that revealed a wooden structure with a big yellow smiley face on it. Jerry told me that it was appropriately called Smiley Barn, and it was where I would be hunting come fall. We got off our vehicles and made our way up the steps. Once we got to the top, I opened the door to find a dark room with only a bucket and a stool chair inside. Jerry opened the wooden windows, revealing a larger look at the surrounding area. I had a terrific view of the woods around me and held my imaginary rifle in my hand as I aimed out each window to see my field of view. To my left was the bumpy trail we had come from, and to my right was a steep decline that led down another hill. In front of me was flatter, but still populated with trees nonetheless. It was the type of hunting spot I had visualized since I was a kid, but never experienced. I was going off about the quality of the treehouse to Jerry when he caught my attention with a particular glare outside. I followed his onlooking to notice something that stood out to me, too. A large white speck just near one of the tree trunks. We weren't too concerned about this unidentified speck, so we wrapped up our talk of the treehouse and went down by the tree to inspect the speck. Upon closer observation, it looked like a pile of white cream, with a consistency similar to vanilla pudding. Jerry poked at it with a stick and noticed it was quite viscous. It didn't have any aroma or unusual qualities. Despite this, we were still dumbfounded by its origin. It was weird, but what are you gonna do? Put it in a bag and deposit it at the local DNR office? We shrugged our shoulders and made our way back to the ATVs. We drove over to Hightower, which would act as Jerry's stand, located at the end of the right trail about a mile away from my stand. Hightower was a tall, thick tree that housed a wooden platform outlook at its top. The wooden ladder steps and the howling wind at the top made it intimidating to remain in the stand, and Jerry could keep the spot all to himself for all I cared. After exploring the rest of the forest, we headed back to the cabin to finish with some chores before it got dark. My aunt made us some chili, and then we just chatted about life and played Halo. I was so riled up, I had a hard time sleeping that night. I looked outside a small window in my room to the darkness outside. Crickets chirped as the cool breeze howled among the trees. It must have been especially blustery that night, because I heard the wind howling back and forth rapidly. It would start and stop again, swaying, which was unusual considering it sounded more like one-directional and less sporadic when I was outside only hours prior. Nevertheless, I eventually fell asleep listening to the hums of Mother Nature among the gentle darkness of my room. 3 months passed before it was almost that time of year. It would only be Jerry and I the first couple of days since my dad got requested to cover an absence at his job, and my uncle was taking care of my aunt at their home, who'd come down with the flu. I gathered my clothes, rifle, snacks, body warmers, heater, and other supplies before meeting up with Jerry at his place in Milwaukee. We got into his truck and made our long drive up north. When we arrived back at the familiar location, we unpacked our stuff and went out to the local town for a fried chicken meal. There were at least 20 camouflaged men and women at the dinner. We weren't surprised, being the day before opening day. We got back and readied our equipment for the morning. And when I say morning, I mean 4 a.m. in the morning. With deer hunting, you have to be in your spot before the forest wakes up at sunrise, so deer won't even realize you're there. It's also DNR protocol not to shoot until at least 6 a.m., so no reckless hunters are accidentally shot by another hunter in the darkness, thinking they were deer. We watched some TV and talked about our game plan tomorrow, which was to stay out from sunrise until sunset. We'd use cell phones to text and walkie-talkies to call, which was not preferable since walkie-talkies create unnecessary noise. Usually, the only times we'd communicate was if we heard a shot go off or to report any other deer noises or sightings. And I'd bring my Nintendo 3DS and a book to relieve my short attention span. It seems some childhood habits never do die, and after our talk, we said goodnight and went to bed. I woke up still feeling sleepy and started getting ready for the day. I put on 2 layers of clothes, ate some oatmeal with Jerry around the dinner table, and then assembled the rest of my equipment and winter clothing. Taking the first step outside, I noticed it was cooler than yesterday, probably 10 degrees above zero. I strapped my 30-06 over my left shoulder, carried my high-powered LED flashlight in my left hand, and my 357 in my right hand. Some of you may be wondering why I carry a revolver on me during deer hunting, and the answer to that is, there are some dangers that lurk in the woods. Some encounters you'd want to avoid with predators, like black bears or badgers, but they also try to avoid us too, which works out as well. The only animal that would make a terrifying encounter would be a pack of gray wolves. And while I don't expect to see myself in any situations such as Liam Neeson from The Grey anytime soon, wolves can still be territorial and travel in packs, so it's best to have a handgun ready whenever traveling out into the wilderness. Knowing how to best respond to these predators can help save your life and prevent having to get hostile with these animals. I finished off my preparation outside with applying some scent elimination spray all over my body. Deer do have a keen sense of smell, and finally made my way off into the darkness of the early morning. The wind blew across the field. I looked above to observe a dense pack of rolling clouds. The forest had not awakened yet, and all remained silent except for the breeze and the crunching of the snow underneath my boots. The only light to be seen came from my flashlight and the subtle changing of colors on the horizon off to the far east. Just as I had reached the end of the field clearing, near the small creek and the makeshift bridge is when I noticed it again. The breeze was wavering. It was unusual to me now because it did not sound normal, off in a way that was overlapping itself. To explain, I could still hear the normal breeze, but now layered over that breeze was this wavering breeze. The strangest thing was, it almost seemed to have a specific origin. I looked off to the western clearing and shot my flashlight into the tree line. Nothing looked out of normal, but upon steady listening, I could tell this breeze was coming from inside the tree line on the south side of the creek. 3 minutes passed, as I stood, stumped on what this noise was until I saw Jerry's flashlight off in the distance, just leaving the cabin. As soon as I noticed this, wavering breeze slowly diminished. I brushed off the odd experience and continued my trek up towards my stand. I was breathing heavily, with a fair amount of perspiration forming under my garments as I neared the top of the hill. Despite the cold, I was still sweating heavily, and this was to be expected from a long trek to my stand. Soon enough, I reached Smiley Barn and opened the wooden door to the same interior I remember being introduced to during the summer. I took off my pack, set down my rifle and revolver, got my mini heater in place, and opened the window. My breath and body temperature were steadied out as I sat and gazed around at the dead woods. It was only 5:40 a.m., so I knew I had some time before the sun would rise. I nodded my head against the nearest wooden wall, cushioned my soft stocking cap, and dozed off. I woke up about 30 minutes later to a flurry of snowfall falling around me. The woods were being blanketed in a white sheet, and the sun was slowly creeping its way out of the horizon, but struggling with a dense layer of clouds. I was so fixated on the beauty of the winter display that I hadn't even noticed the change that had occurred. The breeze was once again wavering, and this time it seemed to originate somewhere off the path I had just come from. Feeling cautious, I grabbed my rifle and used its scope to see if I could pinpoint this strange noise again. Nothing except for the snow falling in the silent dawn of the morning. 2 hours had gone by, with a whole lot of nothing. Snow continued blanketing the landscape during the daylight hours. Something that was apparent was the lack of nature sounds around me. Things like birds, squirrels, chipmunks, and things of that sort were nowhere to be heard of. I knew the storm outside kept persisting, but it wasn't that vicious. I'd hoped to have seen one deer scavenging nearby, but this would not come to be. I felt my pocket buzz and reached down to grab my phone. It was Jerry texting me. Seen anything yet? No, nothing yet. Completely silent by me. Same. It's kinda disappointing, but all we can do is wait. Let's hope we see some activity soon. Jerry responded with, "So this might sound odd, but have you heard the breeze by you recently?" I felt surprised to see him bring this up because Jerry is usually not one to concern himself with these little anomalies after noticing them. Me. Yeah, it will sometimes move back and forth really quickly. That's what I've noticed too on a few occasions this morning. Once when I was walking along the right-hand trail leading toward Hightower, and again about 40 minutes after, settling down. It's weird. Me. I'm not sure what to make of it, but I've never heard the wind blow in such a way. Me neither. I'll keep you updated if I see any deer. You'll know right away if I shoot. And I responded with, "Right on, talk to you whenever, cuz." The day continued as I read my novel, looked around for a while, played some Smash Brothers on my 3DS, looked around more, until it was approaching 4:30 in the afternoon, before I even realized how late it was. The whole day had gone by with no activity to be seen. At least, the snowstorm had finally stopped. The setting sun had glazed the forest with a last ray of twilight before setting along the western horizon. I began to gather my materials in disappointment when my walkie-talkie went off. "Hey, I've got no luck over here. Sun just set, so I'm heading back to the... I need you over here right now!" I came back with, "Is everything okay on your end? There's something off behind me that I just noticed. It's long and white and it seems to be attached to one of the trees. God, this whole time I thought it was snow, but I just noticed that something was off and I just need you to get over here with your gun and help me out because I can't identify what I'm looking at." "What? I don't Just get over here! Be careful. I have no idea what we're dealing with. I know this doesn't make any sense right now, but I just really need you by Hightower. Be sure to be quiet and careful of your surroundings." Yeah, sure, I'll be over soon. I'll have my walkie-talkie on." I turned off my heater and left my pack and other necessary supplies back at the Smiley Barn and began a fast-paced walk towards Hightower. I felt on edge upon leaving my tree stand with the lack of sunlight during this sudden situation. During the winter, when the sun sets, it sets fast. My attention was directed to the front of me as the wind was now moving back and forth again. Something was certainly uncanny, and it seemed much louder than the earlier instances. I could almost locate an exact direction this time towards Jerry's stand. I was jogging and feeling extremely concerned for Jerry's safety, pondering what he could have meant by something long, white, and attached to a tree. There was no time to question the bizarreness of these happenings. I needed answers. My walkie-talkie went off again, and I answered it quietly. 3 minutes, ETA, give me an update. It's hard to tell. I think that whatever I'm looking at is creating the wind noises we've been hearing. It's so dark. I can only make out its rough figure, but the noise is definitely coming from it. I noticed these noises only came in after the sunset. It could mean this thing is nocturnal. I'm not sure what we're dealing with here, but it could be dangerous. Do you think we should shoot at it once I arrive? Or should we attempt to silently retreat? I don't know. When you arrive, I want you to shine your light on. If it appears hostile, then we both shoot it right away. Make sure you use common sense and quick reactions here. Understood, buddy. Keep your phone on. I'll creep up along the path and then text you when I'm in position. Once you feel your phone buzz, count down from 15 seconds, and I'll shine the light on the noise source. And Jerry came back with, Understood. My heart raced as I slowed down my speed. I knew Hightower and Jerry were just over the next hill. The noise was getting louder. I was keeping as silent as I can be. The late afternoon had officially transitioned into night, and all was dark except for the faint moonlight creeping in. The fresh snow crunched underneath me as I crawled my way to the top of the hill on high alert. I saw the orange of Jerry's jacket. He was staring intensely to my 11 o'clock. At the end of his stare was definitely the source of the noise. Looking through my rifle scope toward the noise, I could see snow, and then something attracted my attention. Along one of the tree trunks, the snow was not shimmering like normal snow, but instead was glossy in appearance. Its form was about 8 feet in length, outlining an elongated teardrop-like shape that clung to the tree like a giant fungus. I almost flinched when I saw the mass jiggle slightly in place. This was absolutely the source of the wind, which was so loud now that it was obvious it came from whatever this was. The noise was now less fluctuating the wind and more muffled, deliberate vibrations. I grabbed my phone from my pocket and texted Jerry, and I began to count down. 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10. The vibrations were getting louder. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. The noise was now extremely audible. Something isn't right. 3, 2, 1. That's when I looked over at Hightower and saw it. A 10-foot length of glossy whiteness glinted on the tree trunk of Hightower just feet below the outlook where Jerry stood. I grabbed my heavy-duty flashlight and turned it to Hightower and saw a terrible sight. The creature was snow-white and covered in a heavy, viscous, clear mucus. Its head quickly pivoted toward me with shocking agility. My body froze and eyes widened looking at this horrific facial features. Its white eyes were massive with piercing tiny black retinas. The mouth was a small black abyss that concaved inwards like a cavern. It lacked any visible nose or ears on its flat face. 2 long, slender arms protruded from each side of its mass, ending in massive, eagle-like talons that dug into the tree. The rest of its body strapped firmly against the tree similar to a leech, attaching itself to exposed skin. It eyed me down in place as everything went still. The vibrations abruptly faded and I was left petrified. "Aiden, shoot it!" Jerry's yell broke my gaze with the beast as I fumbled to direct my rifle toward the creature's direction. Its mouth opened only slightly to emit a piercing noise before I got it into my sights. To imagine this sound, think of an alligator's guttural hissing. Now take that sound and put it in a rapid vibrating loop and increase it to ear-shattering volume. I gasped and took all of my resolve to focus my aim and fire the rifle. The creature jolted upon the bullet's impact on its upper half before quickly falling to the ground. I was returned to being mesmerized in terror upon seeing the creature, now writhing back and forth rapidly, kicking up snow with its claws, almost in silence, for it made no cries of pain. Its arms helped turn itself over before quickly slithering off into the darkness among the trees. I only had a split second to direct my attention to a new sound of shuffling snow just behind me. My body swiveled to shine my flashlight behind me and see the other 8-foot creature quickly slithering toward me. I screamed and haphazardly tried to grab my revolver in my pocket. A shot went off just past me and landed right on the creature's right arm. The arms, which was tucked in, was now drooping along its side. A white gelatinous paste secreted from its wound as the creature thrashed to its side. The shot gave me enough time to draw my revolver again and begin firing. The mix of shots from my revolver and Jerry's rifle were enough to scare it off into the woods as it too slithered away. We probably landed another 2 rounds in it. I'll never forget the uncanny noise of the croaking, whimpering hybrid it made as it vanished out of our sights. I stood shaking for a moment before returning over to the bottom of Hightower. We spent no time taking or gathering any equipment beyond our rifles and revolvers. Our heavy coats were dropped as we ran as fast as we could back to the cabin. The darkness never felt so intimidating, and the sparkling snow never seemed so fear-inducing. As we reached the field, we noticed that the wind was blowing normally. This came to a relief for me, but it did not stifle our running speed. We got tantalizingly close to the porch light when I suddenly had a rush of emotions come over me. Confusion and relief, and a sense of residing adrenaline overtook me as streams flowed from my eyes along the beads of my sweat. I stood gasping by the door as Jerry hastily grabbed his car keys and our wallets. We were not going to spend one more night in this godforsaken moment anywhere near this nightmare. I remember yelping once we got into the truck and pressuring Jerry to drive upon hearing the breeze wavering as it steadily became louder again. The only thing I remember for the first 5 minutes of us driving off was my heavy breathing and anxiously twitching towards the direction of every glint of snow-covered tree we passed till we reached the highway. 40 minutes later, we had reached the town of Tomahawk and pulled over at a nearby diner to grab some coffee and feel the company of others. We didn't know what to make of what happened or what those things were we encountered. All we know is that we were scared out of our minds as to what just happened and wanted to go home. I bought us a serving of toast to ease ourselves before driving back to Milwaukee. We got in the car and I turned on the radio to distract our thoughts. Later, we'd end up learning that 2 hunters and 1 local family had gone missing over the past few weeks. I made an anonymous report to the Wisconsin DNR of strange, white animal sightings around that township. There hasn't been any response yet, so I doubt they took my report seriously. We don't go to the cabin anymore. Jerry and I still haven't told the incident to anyone we know out of concern that we'll be looked at as delusional or dishonest. The woods still make me visibly uneasy at night whenever I go camping or even to visit local suburbia parks with friends. Make sure you keep aware of unusual noises you hear in the woods at night, and it could save your life.
Wow, there we go, guys. As promised, something special for this weekend. Can't thank you enough, Chaos, for working with me. Guys, please do like and share. Please let us know down below in the comments what you think. Also, check out Chaos Theory Productions YouTube channel. I myself, DMT, will be featuring there very, very soon. And as ever, guys, remember, be safe, not sorry.